Jam Session is a podcast where two guys who grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth discuss sports, craft beer, life, and their experiences living in one of America's most vibrant cities. If you love sports, you're going to love this show. If you love craft beer or you're curious about it, you'll love this show. Great conversations with good friends is what Jam Session is all about.
Welcome. It's nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
You're listening to the Jam Session Podcast.
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume.
With Cowboys insider...
What's your name?
Jean-Jacques Taylor.
That's my name.
Radio personality and craft beer expert, Matt McLaren.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing.
And now, the Jam Session Podcast. It is indeed Jam Session. Subscribe, rate, and review, and hang out with us for a while. Right here on the Jam Session Podcast. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the radio, TV, and now podcast star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor.
What up, dog?
I would be the non-sexy one, Matt McLaren. And this is Jam Session, the podcast, version 48, asking simply that you prepare to be dazzled,
if not entertained.
And before we get into the conference title games and the Kansas City, Tampa Bay Super Bowl 55 matchup, we have to tell you about a champion of our own. And that, of course, is Blue Star Motor Group. Blue Star Motor Group, specializing in superior quality, Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models. No matter what you're looking for, maybe a car for yourself, maybe a car for a 16-year-old that you have coming up perhaps in the year of 2021. Whatever the case may be, you can see their inventory on their website at bluestarmotorgroup.com. You can also give Deb a call, 817-881-4066. You know, we told the story, I think it might have been on the last podcast. We had an email from a listener who was wondering if Blue Star could maybe find them a car in the range of like $10,000 to $12,000. Right. And I contacted Deb and she's like, yeah, you know, we can definitely help them out. They got in touch and they're now helping to find that man a car for, I believe it was for, he had a teenager and was trying to get him a first car. So maybe you're in that boat. Maybe you're in the boat where you want to look for that 2019, whatever it is, fully loaded car that retails for like $100,000, but Blue Star will end up having it for 70, whatever. It's across the board. They can help you out with whatever range of vehicle you're looking at.
And it's my kind of spot, man, because they can, as Matt said, they can find whatever you need. And they've got great cars and great deals. And they got cars that I believe in, which is let somebody else take that big hit and then I drive it off the lot for like 40-50% less. And I'm flossing at that point.
There you go, man. So do it. Get on there, bluestarmotorgroup.com. Again, local family-owned business, so support local. And, of course, support over here.
Support.
Here we go.
Just support them.
I would like it very much if you would support Freeway Tire Shop. Now, Freeway Tire Shop, very easy to get to in Dallas. This may be, I've got a busy week this week, but at some point, I am hoping because my oil light finally came on yesterday. So it is time for me to get an oil change. So maybe you'll see me this week saying hello to JR and the crew at Freeway Tire Shop. They can do the oil changes, the inspections, mechanic work, tires, whatever it is that you need with competitive pricing, elite customer service. They are big fans of Jam Session. Will get you taken care of. You can schedule an appointment, request a quote online at freewaytireshop.com. And as we've been mentioning, they are doing a 10% discount up to $500, your first $500 for the Jam Session audience, but you got to let them know that you heard about it right here.
Yeah, I took 2 cars last week. Got great service. They're both running great now. So I got nothing but love for JR and the crew over there.
Excellent. I can't wait to take mine in there because this is not like a problem. It's not anything bad. But, man, this must have been 2 weeks ago when it was raining really, really heavy. And I had to go into Dallas. And for anybody who's ever been in this area, so I live over in the Las Colinas area, kind of, Irving, Las Colinas. And the way that I get on into Dallas is I usually take O'Connor to 114. And if you've ever done that and you've ever taken O'Connor and you've gone east into Dallas, the entrance ramp, whenever it rains,
yeah,
the water runs down and just piles up at the bottom of the entrance ramp. So you're accelerating, trying to go, I mean, you're trying to match cars going 70 miles an hour. and it was dark, and I didn't realize that the water was as bad as it was. And dude, I was almost surprised my airbag didn't deploy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because my car hit that water and it was like,
oh, that.
And you know, whatever it is that like is underneath your car that protects stuff from like bouncing up into your engine and stuff, man, hitting that water jacked up whatever it's like a thick plastic or whatever, and a chunk of it's hanging down now. And I don't know, I'm sure going to take it in, and JR's going to be like, what the hell happened with this? I'm like, I don't know, man. Can you fix it?
You know,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
So again, you can request an appointment and check them out at freewaytireshop.com. And also, of course, I know many of you, well, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, if you're a Kansas City fan, maybe you're buying conference champion t-shirts. Why not add a jam session t-shirt to that?
That's the best thing you could do if you want to support the show. We have sold out of medium. So we got large in black and red. We got extra large in black. We got 2XLs in black and red, and we got 2 3XLs in black left. So we appreciate the support. We're mailing quite a few every week. Everybody should have theirs by now. So no, man, it's a great way to support the show. They're good t-shirts. Even Matt wears them because they're soft like toilet paper.
Yeah, they're very soft, man. I wear mine quite a bit. So if you would like a Jam Session t-shirt, you just heard Jacques tell you what we have left. Shoot me an email, matt@jamsessionpodcast.com. $20 plus shipping and handling. And once you send me that email, I need to know the color you want, the size, and your shipping address. And then I'll shoot you an invoice and we'll go from there. Easy enough, seems like. But we now know Super Bowl 55 is in the books. Kansas City, as expected, at home, gets it done. But, man, the early game today, as we record this on Sunday night after the 2 games, Tampa Bay, Tampa Tom, whatever you want to call them, somehow the dude leaves New England, finds a team in the NFC that hasn't done anything in 18 years. I mean, literally, you can go look at what Tampa Bay has done since 2002 when they won the Super Bowl, Brad Johnson and John Gruden, and it's nothingness. And Tom Brady shows up and immediately takes them to the Super Bowl. The whole idea of it, and I tweeted this out jokingly, obviously. It's almost like he looked around and was like, okay, I've been to 9 Super Bowls. I've won 6. Nobody's ever going to do that. What could I do that nobody, you know what? I'll go play in Tampa and take them so that they can be the first ever home team in their own stadium to play in a Super Bowl.
Well, I think it was I think it was a great fit for Tom Brady. All right. Because he went, let's not get it twisted, man. New England had no offensive weaponry around him, which is why he was throwing all those short passes, and they were using a lot of trick plays, and they were trying to trick people. They just had no weapons, man. Go look at their skill position now. Julian Edelman's their best receiver.
Sure.
He ought to be like your number 3 on a good team, maybe your 4th guy at his age and all this stuff. So he went to a team that had weapons. He spent the week saying, he spent the season saying, hey, give me Antonio Brown. He'll act right. He'll behave. But here's what I think a lot of people we've kind of talked around it, but we haven't really talked about it. I think one of the things that helped him most was he went to a team with a coach who, take this the right way, was unimpressed that he was Tom Brady because he had worked with Big Ben and he'd worked with Peyton Manning.
Right.
And so he was like, oh, you just another Hall of Fame quarterback I'm working with. So I can tell you that your shit stinks when it stinks.
It's true, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, here, I realized you were dinking and dunking in New England because y'all didn't really have nothing. Hey, Tommy, here we throw that thing. We take shots. We got receivers. We take chances. We're very aggressive. And I think it took him a minute to figure out how he fit into all of that. But the last 6 or 7 games, look at the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's clear that he and Bruce Arians got on the same page. It's clear that he and Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, got on the same page. And their defense has been good with Todd Bowles all year.
Yeah.
So, they did what they were supposed to do. They peaked at the right time.
Man.
And then they let the GOAT help get them where they were trying to go.
Yeah, and I think, and this is something because people, he threw 3 interceptions. It's not like he had a great game. Okay, sure. I thought Mike Evans should have caught 2 of those. The second one that bounced off his hand, sure, it was a little high, but even Des Bryant tweeted out about it like, come on, Mike, you got to catch that one. And it's one of those where I looked at it and I thought maybe more than anything, because obviously this is not the Tom Brady of of 2007 or what have you.
Right.
But what Tom Brady did, again, this is a franchise that had not won a playoff game since 2002. They hadn't been in the playoffs since 2007. None of these guys knew how to win. They had gone 5-11, 5-11, 7-9 in the 3 years before Tom Brady shows up. And it almost feels like Tom Brady, and Bruce Arians even said this in the post-game comments, that when he walked into the building, Tom Brady changed the culture immediately because everybody on that team could look and go, my God, that dude is here. We can actually win now.
And I'm trying to figure out, I can't remember, so forgive me, which Tampa Bay player was saying this last week. I heard it on a podcast, but he was describing just what you said. Because, okay, fine, Tom Brady showed up and the culture changed. Tell me how the culture changed, because people say this stuff all the time. What does that really mean? And, God, I wish I could remember what player this was. He was a young player. But he said Tom Brady showed up with a notebook, and he sits in the front row, and he takes notes at every meeting. And he was saying, I wouldn't even consider now going to a meeting without having my notebook and taking notes because Tom Brady's doing it. And I'm afraid of what he would say to me if he saw me without my notebook taking notes in the meeting. So that's how you change the culture. And then Bruce Arians said something interesting. I think he said it last week. Man, maybe it was either in Albert Breer's Monday Morning Quarterback or Peter King's Football Morning in America. It's one of those where he said, oh, we let him coach here. In New England, they didn't want him to coach.
Yeah, I think that was MMQB because I remember reading that as well. Well, Peter King's thing, FMIA now. Yeah.
And I was like, interesting. And I think all it means is in practice, if he says, hey, I want you to run a route like this, well, even if it's not the textbook route, the way to run it, okay, fine. Tom wants us to run it a little bit like that. And maybe it means for the younger quarterbacks, hey, this is probably a better way to do it, whatever. But I think it's if Tom Brady wants to give you some pointers and it's to help the team, I'd kind of let him give me some pointers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and I heard Peter King did a podcast Peter King, now it was a little differently this year, of course, because of COVID, but he goes to all these different training camps, and he went where he could this year, and he had a conversation with Bruce Arians before the season even began about Tom Brady, and it was talking about some of these things, about the teaching moments, about how Brady would pull aside Mike Evans when Mike Evans would do something where nobody had ever done that with Mike Evans before. And right. Tom Brady would say, look, when you, whatever it is, you see this is what you do. This is what I'm expecting you to do. And it's the little things like that raised, because Tampa's got some talent with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller, who caught that pass right before halftime, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, Cameron Brate. They've got some offensive talent. I don't think that they've ever, obviously Jameis Winston, I don't think is that guy. And Tom shows up and goes, okay, I've got the talent here. If I can get them to do what I need them to do, we can do something with this. And everybody bought into it with him.
Yeah, and dude, I got to tell you, I think it's going to be a sensational Super Bowl, because we're going to spend all week talking about Brady and Mahomes and Arians and the offense and stuff. But if you think about it, today was, to me, it's about Ty Bowles, who used to be with the Cowboys.
Right.
And that defense basically shutting down Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Keeping him out. They shut him down in the red zone and made him kick a couple field goals, but they harassed him. And, and when Brady was throwing those interceptions in the second half, the last two times they got the ball, they snuffed him. They didn't give him anything. And then I think when you leave the big picture, the macro, and take a micro approach, bruh, it's 4th and 8 from the 8 with 2 minutes. You got to go for that. What the hell are you doing, dude?
It's like Mike McCarthy was like, you know what? My ghost is still walking around Lambeau. I will enter the body of Matt LaFleur and totally screw this up for Green Bay. That was beyond mind-boggling to me. I had no, what in the world are you thinking that you're doing, kicking a field goal there, saying, well, let's hope that the GOAT, and I don't care if he had thrown 5 interceptions in the second half.
Right.
Tom Brady always made his career off of his, I haven't played great all game. Guess what I'll do in the final 2 minutes?
Dude, and here's the other thing, man. When you have Tom Brady at your quarterback, what did they do on first down? They did play action and threw the ball and got 9 yards on first down.
Yeah.
Because when you have that guy, you believe in him, you trust him, so your entire playbook is open. plus you're at the 25-yard line or whatever. If you go for it on fourth down and you don't get it, there's still 2 minutes and 2 seconds left or whatever it is. You've got 3 timeouts, and they got the ball at the 8-yard line.
Right.
Or wherever they stopped you. So that close to their end zone, they're not doing anything exotic for the most part. They're like, hey, if we need to run the ball 3 times, punt, rely on the defense, let's do that. Let's just don't make any mistakes right here and give them the ball right at the goal line. So, I mean, that's like, dude.
That was shocking.
What are you doing?
It's like he had a brain fart and spazzed out. It was like, blah, 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 field goal. I was like, what are you doing, man? Just
now,
stunned.
I got to say, I was shocked. But I got to say, I was also surprised. I wasn't shocked, but I was also surprised on second and third down that Aaron Rodgers didn't run.
On the third down throw, I was extremely surprised. I think, you're talking about a race for the pylon on that throw because that right side of the field was open for him.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he was going to, and then it's like he saw something out of the corner of his eye, or I almost think that he might have seen what he thought was a penalty, and so he threw the ball at that to draw attention to it and then didn't get the call.
He may have, but When he dropped back and that crease opened up,
yeah.
I was watching the game with my dude. I'm like, dude, I was like, man, he's finna take off. And he was, and he pulled up and threw it. I was like, ugh.
And those are the things, and we get into this, and we talked about this leading into this game, the legacy of Aaron Rodgers and where will he rank amongst the greats of all time. And fairly or unfairly, for whatever reason, the dude is now 1-4 in conference title games. He's only ever gotten to 1 Super Bowl, despite going 13-3 in back-to-back seasons, having a championship game at home. And he played really well. I mean, he had a solid game through the 1 pick, sure, but for the most part was obviously the better quarterback in this game. And for whatever reason, when it was on the line with the chance to do it again right there at the end, he didn't get it done.
And come on, man. As a Cowboys fan, you're like, what the hell, bro? Every time you played us, you got it done.
I know. I was thinking that, man, because I was like, okay, so you can pull a rabbit out of a hat and throw a blind pass to Jared Cook, but you can't scramble for 8 yards? What the hell is this shit?
I was thinking that as I was watching the game. I'm like, he done broke the Cowboys' hearts in the playoffs a couple times. And now here he is. He can't pull out a game that doesn't require a miracle. It just requires normal quarterback play.
That's amazing, man. And that's
that one-legged performance against Dallas in 2014.
I'm aware. We don't have to
heroics, dude. I mean, come on, man.
But he didn't have it tonight, and we'll see. He was really weird after the game. I don't know why he's talking about he doesn't know what the future holds, and he doesn't. We'll see. And a lot of guys, all this and that about, is he coming back or not? I was like, what do you mean is he coming back? He's got like 3 years left on his contract. He can't. I mean, he could retire, I guess, but he's got a $31 million dead cap hit. I mean, he's going back to Green Bay if he's playing. Who knows? I'd be shocked if he doesn't play for another 5 or 6 years.
He's not quite as bad as Cam Newton when he loses, but he's in that category.
Yes, he is. He's got that.
He got this. He's all up in his feelings, and that's okay. So I give him a pass today. I don't even pay any attention to what he says. Yeah, and
it's weird because when you look at the totality of this, I saw a lot of people on Twitter and on Facebook. Somehow I know a lot of Packers fans. And, of course, it's, well, the refs screwed us. Brady cheats again to win. And I just thought, look.
Stop.
Okay, there are calls each way, and they were letting them play. I get it. But I don't know how you don't call that final pass where it was blatantly obvious that the Packers defender twice. And that's the problem. Like when you're right in front of a referee like that, or an umpire, whoever it was that threw the flag, and you've got a whole fistful of jersey and you're pulling it 3 feet behind the guy.
It's pretty obvious.
They have to throw that flag. They're going to throw it every time. There's no other way around it. Right. And penalties and calls or non-calls, it has nothing to do with this game. This game came down to the idea 2 things happened. We already talked about the field goal. The second one was Kevin King thought the half was over, was lighting up something on the side, sitting in his recliner watching TV, and Scotty Miller went right past him, and Tom Brady went dime, touchdown, 28-10 halftime lead.
What the hell was that all about?
That as mind-boggling as the choice to go for the field goal was, I was wondering what in the world It's like Green Bay thought, well, surely they won't try a pass here. I guess they'll just I don't know what they were doing.
I don't either, man. There was 6 seconds left. So maybe they were, I don't know what they were doing. They weren't even in the right type of defense.
I know.
Like you don't, in that case, okay, whatever you want to catch in front of us, even if it's an 18-yard out to set up a field goal, okay, fine. We don't want to give up the field goal, but fine. But dude, that Tom Brady took one look, took a pre-snap read at that and said, "Oh, let me just make sure it looks like he's got man."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me drop back and see. Like, he didn't even look at the other side of the field, man. He said, I got man coverage over here. I'm going to take a shot. And Kevin King, you got one job, bro. One job. Don't let the dude get behind me. And he didn't even, he couldn't. I mean, it's like he was playing. Yeah. It's like he was playing a zone or something.
He had no idea where he was. No.
And he put his hand back there and felt air.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, he had no clue where he was.
Oh, my God. I'm like, dude.
It was stunning. And that, that might have been the play that won the game for Tampa Bay because they never, obviously, at the end, it was 28-26, even if Tampa doesn't get a field goal in the second half because of that touchdown pass that ended the first half when they caught Green Bay just totally, those two boneheaded plays. That's on coaching. And the coaching staff, Mike McCarthy, this thing for him, man. They did. And so now you've got Tampa in the Super Bowl. It is Tom Brady's 10th trip to the Super Bowl. He's been in the league for 21 years. One of those was his rookie year. He didn't start a game. The other one was when he started one game and blew out his knee. What was that like? I can't remember the year. Yeah. The 19 seasons that he has played, in 19 full seasons, he has gone to the Super Bowl in 10 of the 19 seasons.
Okay, we're going to get into this next week, but I'm just saying, and maybe we had this discussion last year. Dude, what if Mahomes beats him and he's 6-4?
I know. I was thinking that too. I was like, we give LeBron all this shit because he gets to the finals all this time and wins some rings but loses as well. At what point do you look at Brady? But I think it's just so, for whatever reason, it's different. The guy has 6 rings, which is more than anybody ever thought a player in the NFL was going to win.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to ask somebody about that. Because it feels like there's a difference between 7-3 and 6-4.
Oh, there is. For sure there is. But
7-3 is like you still won twice as many as you lost.
7 rings by a quarterback. Come on. The next closest guy has 4. It's like, what are we doing? That's so. As a matter of fact, I was looking at this, and I put this out there just as a funny ha-ha to screw with Cowboys fans a little bit on Twitter. I was like, how wild is it that Dallas has been around for 60 years of football history? They've been to the Super Bowl 8 times. Tom Brady's been to 10 Super Bowls since the last time Dallas was in one.
Wow.
I was like, welcome to Dallas, man. And
dude,
it's just, it's wild. It's insane that this guy, because you left Belichick, you left New England. It's like, oh, well, I'll still go to the Super Bowl. Why not? It's crazy.
Now, he picked a great spot, though, and that's half the battle, man. It's like, if you have an opportunity to pick your spot or control your spot, you got to make sure you pick the right one. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Matt Stafford down the road or Deshaun Watson who's trying to get out or whatever. You just got to make sure you got it lined up, man, so that everything is there for you to succeed. And that's what Tom Brady did. And I just have a feeling it's going to be a hell of a game.
It may be, because this is Tom Brady. They're in their home stadium. And it's also interesting, the NFC is the home team this year, so they will be in their home locker room. Yeah,
and here's the deal, man. Nobody blitzes Pat Mahomes. They say he's too good. Mm-hmm. He reads it, he gets away, blah, blah, blah. All Tampa does is blitz with Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
They're not going to change. And so, dude, and let's keep it real, even as we relate to today's game, Brady has not been putting up prolific numbers in either of these 2 games.
No, not at all.
His best thing has been he's been making pars. He hadn't had any bogeys, for the most part.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to make some birdies and maybe an eagle to beat Kansas City, I think.
I agree. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes down. You know, the flip side of that, the Kansas City game, which Buffalo gets up real quick on this one after the Mecole Hardman where he fumbled the kick or whatever, and it's down there. Buffalo gets it. All of a sudden, it's 9-0. And if this was any other team, I might have been like, dang. But we've seen this. I mean, they did it last year in the Super Bowl. Kansas City is so potent and can score so easily that hell, the Texans last year in the divisional round, you can be up on them by like 3 or 4 touchdowns. It doesn't matter.
I think the thing is they're so explosive. I like to say that they play basketball football, meaning they have like runs. And that's what they did to Buffalo, man. They got it working and got a run. And they put up 21 points before Buffalo knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It's like they go through their bag of tricks. They find their offense until they figure out what it is that works. And once they figure it out, bro, good luck with all of that. Mm-hmm. They got, Kelsey is fantastic. Tyreek Hill is fantastic. I mean, they can't
be stopped. And that's the thing is watching Tyreek Hill tonight. And I don't know if Tampa, Todd Bowles is going to, part of it is you just don't have anybody on the field who's as fast as that guy. Tyreek Hill may be the fastest football player I've ever seen. His ability, he's like on Madden, he's a 99 speed, a 99 acceleration, 99 spin move, 99 juke move. His ability, that long run that he had, that was like 50-yard run or whatever, he catches it, stops on a dime, and immediately like does this little foot shuffle and is gone, cutting back, and the whole defense is like, oh, shit. He is so fast. I just don't know if you have anybody on the field. And part of it is just pure speed, man. We've seen games before where it's like Pat Mahomes goes, okay, I'm just going to chunk it down there because I know for a fact nobody can outrun Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. Pat Mahomes going into this game led all the playoff quarterbacks with 15 touchdowns of 20 yards or more. He had 8 of 30 yards or more. And of those 8, 6 of them went to Tyreek Hill. And that's the kind of weapon he is. He's a cheat code, man. He can score from anywhere, any place, anytime.
He's so silly. And then Travis Kelce, who is quickly becoming whatever Gronk was when Gronk was like actually healthy and in his prime.
That's a good way to put it.
Travis Kelce is that guy, and he's completely unstoppable. He's unguardable. There's no way to defend him, especially in the red zone. He's such a threat. And then you add in, it's ridiculous the amount of weapons that they have, and they can be so creative because they have a quarterback who can visualize those types of things. Some of the play calls that they do with Andy Reid, you're just like, you just are laughing at it. And no other team can do that because they don't have the personnel the Chiefs have.
And then I got the last thing, which is I pointed this out to my dude as Mahomes eluded yet another rusher. I said, you know why they had such a hard time sacking him? He said, yeah, he's quick. I said, yeah, he's quick, dog, but he's also 6'3" and 235. He said, wow, he's that big? I go, yeah. So he's not a little dude, man. And they got a great offense. They got creativity. They're not scared. And now they're playing for something that means something to them. I think their biggest obstacle is they get bored during the season because they're so good.
Yeah, and you're looking at an opportunity to do back-to-back Super Bowl championships.
Oh, yeah. I'm hoping they win, man, because I love greatness, and I would love to see them win.
They're so good. They're going to be favored. I think that they're going to win. And look, I think with Tom Brady, who the hell knows, man? Never count that dude out. And it's not necessarily because of his arm anymore to me. It's because of what he does to inspire anybody on the field at this point. And that Tampa defense is good. They can play. But that being said, Kansas City is so silly good.
Now, I'll look it up this week, but here's the caveat. Tampa puts pressure on you, but Tampa also has been creating turnovers. And so if you create turnovers, then, of course, it doesn't matter what team you are, all bets are off because that's the great equalizer. There's a few things I'm going to look up because to me, this is the classic marquee quarterback matchup. I got to see the last time we had, a quarterback matchup like this in the Super Bowl. Maybe it was Favre, Elway. Maybe it was something after that. That may be the latest one because Favre was still on this ascent and Elway was at the end, kind of like this one. So.
Yeah,
but that's just off the top of my head. But I'm intrigued by the game.
I am too, and it's going to be really interesting to see. I do think Kansas City is going to get it done. I think they're the better team, but we'll find out. I wouldn't count out Bruce Arians to pull rabbits out of his hat, man. That dude is capable of doing some wild stuff as well, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great matchup, and Kansas City now with the chance to go back-to-back, as I mentioned, and Tom Brady with the chance to win a seventh ring, a seventh Super Bowl, to join Peyton Manning as the only quarterbacks to do it with two different franchises, which is, I mean, it's insane. His career is just absolutely bonkers.
I am rooting. I'm just going to already tell you. I'm rooting for the Chiefs because I want them to win now so that they have a chance to do what nobody's done, which is get the third one. See, I've already left the second one. I want the third one in a row.
Which I think, and how about this, to support what you were just talking about the level of quarterback?
Yeah.
Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes is the first time ever where we will see a Super Bowl matchup between the two previous quarterbacks that won Super Bowls, as in the Chiefs won last year and the Patriots with Tom Brady had won the year before, and now they're meeting in that third year.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
We've never seen that before, which is cool.
They'll both show up to play.
Oh, no doubt.
This is a young heavyweight champ against the aging champ.
God, that's a great way of putting it. It really does feel that way.
Typically the young guy wins it, but here's the deal. It better not be close in the fourth quarter.
Man.
Like, it better not be like a 6-point lead and Brady's got the ball, because and
he'll figure it. Yeah.
And you know that he knows that you know. that he'll take his team down there and score.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, what a fun Super Bowl matchup it's going to be coming up in 2 weeks down there. And it's cool. I always wondered if a team would ever do it, if a team would somehow get to the Super Bowl the year that it randomly happened to be at their stadium. And Tampa has done that. They get to be in their homes. They get to have their normal. And I don't know, but it's different because, again, this is not because of COVID. This is not where they're flying down and spending a week there and going through all the stuff you normally go through. They will do all of that virtually, and then they're supposed to land. I was reading an article today that said at the earliest, it'll be 2 days before the Super Bowl, and it may be the day before the Super Bowl on that Saturday that they would fly into Tampa, whereas Tampa's just going to hang the whole time and is already there. They're going to get to use their own locker room that they've used all season long. So for all those dudes that may not have that experience, it's a real interesting level of comfort that we've never seen a team have before in a Super Bowl.
True that, but it's also going to be like that for Kansas City if they fly in at the last minute.
Right.
Like a regular trip, because they'll do the same thing.
Yeah, and with Kansas City, even if it's not, I mean, they were there last year, and that, man, God, this is, I saw somebody, I think on your Facebook, that answered the thing about Brady being the GOAT, and somebody said, as long as Mahomes stays healthy, he'll destroy all of Brady's records. And I was like, that, I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, that's the Brady-Belichick, that whole partnership. I don't think people realize, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kansas City wins 3 or 4 Super Bowls in the next 10 years. It's the 10 years after that of replicating it that Brady was able to do with the Patriots that nobody's ever done before.
No, it's the way you do that. I can tell you how that happens. There's a chance it can happen, but the way it happens is the same way the Cowboys did it before they fell apart in the 80s. In the mid 80s, it's you have the same organizational structure, and then you get lucky on the guy. In their case, the guy who replaced Roger Staubach, because Danny White was ready to play. But if you can keep the organizational structure with the GM, with Andy Reid, with Pat Mahomes for an extended period of time, because Clark Hunt is not a guy who's what you would call an owner who's all involved in the day to day. He lets you do what you do. So if you take care of business, he's not going to change anything. And they have figured out what they need and what their identity is and all of this. Because remember, and that's a thing that most organizations lack, or they can't figure out how to do it successfully. Like, obviously, the Steelers and the Ravens are defensive organizations. Well, Kansas City is now turned to this offensive machine, and they keep adding offensive pieces and offensive weaponry, and they lose Peterson and they lose Nagy, and it doesn't matter. because Andy Reid is at the head of the tree, and he keeps getting guys up under him who can work. Now they got Kafka, who they don't want to lose, who's the next in line. So if you can keep that structure, then you can win over a significant period of time. Because think about it. If Andy Reid leaves, okay, now a lot of the structure and identity leaves with him unless you replace him with one of his disciples.
Perhaps, and that's where that'll get interesting because Andy Reid and Mahomes got with each other when Andy Reid was 60. Bill Belichick was in his late 40s when he hooked up with Tom Brady.
Exactly.
You know, it's a big difference, and we've just, again, it's a huge assumption. Tom Brady is such an outlier as far as the hunger to go at this age, despite the gobs amounts of success that he 6 rings. And he still doesn't walk away. And who knows, even if Tampa wins this year, he may not walk away. And that's what's so rare. I mean, maybe Mahomes wins a few, but is Mahomes still going to have that drive and that passion when he's 38, 39?
That's the question.
Who knows, man, especially with the money that Mahomes is going to make. I mean, he'll shatter Brady's career earnings easy.
That's interesting. And maybe we'll talk. I got like a lot of things we're supposed to, maybe we'll talk about.
Well, we can.
Because, it's like, it's interesting the way you worded that because Tiger Woods has more money than he could ever spend.
Right.
And he's as competitive as, he's competitive now. He's having back surgery. Why? So he can go out there and try to play. For some people, it's the competition, not the money. For other people, it's the money. And like LeBron James, he's 38, or 36, whatever he is. He's got the Tom Brady, Tiger Woods mentality. Right. He'll be trying to win championships until he literally ain't no good no more. And then, one day they'll say, dog, you got to go at 41 or 42.
Well, and look, maybe Mahomes has that. I don't know that we know that right now.
No,
and
we don't.
I would also throw this out there. Mahomes is about to have to go through a gauntlet of the AFC because all these young, hot quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Josh Allen isn't going anywhere. He will learn from what he experienced tonight. Trevor Lawrence is going to be coming into the AFC trying to build something. Deshaun Watson, most likely, even if he leaves Houston, is staying in the AFC. We've got Joe Burrow with Cincinnati. Who knows what these teams in the next 2-3 years are able to build up? Justin Herbert in his own division.
Yep. No, that's a really good point because the AFC is just going to get tougher.
Right.
Whereas Brady shows up and kicks the crap out of the kings of the NFC and Breeze and Rodgers.
I know, man. It's just what a wild story. But Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Super Bowl 55 is set. Sunday, February 6th, I believe, is the official date for that one. And the weekend is going to be the halftime show. So I will actually watch the halftime show this year. It'll be the first time in forever.
He done blowed up.
I know. I'm excited about that. Blinded by the lights. So let's get into taking a trip around the block. Local guys talking about local things. And it doesn't get any more local, of course, than Blue Dragon Fine Art, bluedragonfineart.com. Logan Renfro, good dude, man. Was happy to meet him when we did our live show out at Legal Draft. We're still at the beginning of the new year, which is always such a great time to do some of those special things that you've been talking about. And with Valentine's Day coming up in February, you talk about a unique gift. How about that perfect piece of art to complement your home, maybe her home, your lover's home or office? And again, this is all local stuff, man. Great local artists at bluedragonfineart.com. A range of styles and affordable prices with a focus on DFW artists. And how about this? If you're listening and you are a new or maybe an established artist and you're searching for a space to showcase your art, guess what? Blue Dragon Fine Art is the way to go. You can go to the Show With Us section, submit your paintings for consideration to be a part of the gallery. Again, check them out on Instagram and Facebook, Blue Dragon Fine Art, and of course, bluedragonfineart.com. Very local, which I like. And I also thought this is so weird to me because we were on the ticket today. Again, we're recording this on Sunday. Jacques and I are going to be doing probably noon to 3 most Sundays as we have the availability. And I don't know why. I meant to make a note of this. Today, January 24th, is the 27th anniversary of the ticket.
Is it now?
Yes, it was started 27 years ago today on Sports Radio 1310. And of course, now it's also on 96.7 FM. And the ticket, which for many of us, especially me, was such a huge part of why I wanted to be in radio. I grew up on the ticket. I listened to it when I was in high school back before. I mean, some of the current guys obviously have been there since day one. But like Bob Sturm, for instance, who came, I believe, around 99. And before the midday show, some of you may remember this, like David Robinson used to work there, Chris Arnold, Rocco Pindola did the show for a while. And I think it was like the summer of 97 or 98. He did the noon to 3 slot live on air in a car. And he went all the way around Beltline and did the whole loop on Beltline around DFW. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, the guy sounded like a dick on the air. I never met him or knew him, and he obviously wasn't from this area. And I don't know that he fit Dallas that well, but I'll never forget that. Back when, I was like 19 years old when he did that show, and I thought, man, that is so cool. I want to do that.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that. I remember the early days of the ticket with Skip Bayless and then, Coop for a moment.
Yeah.
And Chris Arnold on there. I remember more of that. And then I remember the hard line really going hard after the Cowboys when they were having their issues in the mid-90s. But, the thing about it was when the ticket was just getting launched and really starting to establish itself, mm-hmm. I was a beat writer at the Morning News at the time. And so, to be honest, I didn't really hear a lot of radio because you're in the facility all day working, as opposed to like now you could stream it and hear it wherever and whenever.
Right.
And technology at the time wasn't like that. And so most days I got to Valley Ranch at like 10 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. And so I heard a little bit of the Musers, but I didn't hear any of the other shows because when I got out, it was right at the end of the hard line. And by then I was usually listening to Galloway.
Yeah, it's so crazy, man, because I was really into the ticket for many years. It was one of those things, really, like I said, probably the late 90s is when I got into it, like 97, 98, when I started transitioning from high school into college. And then when I moved back here, obviously, I was listening to the ticket nonstop all the time. And when I was in college, it was one of those things where, and I still have it to this day, it is the oldest email that I have from August 19th of 2000. I wrote an email to Bob Sturm. And the email, of course, Bad Radio used to say, never listen to bad radio and all of this. And I wrote an email while I was in college to Bob Sturm for his advice on how to get into radio and all of that. And to this day, I have kept his response. I've had his response for 20 years now, the email that he sent me back of his advice on how to get into sports talk radio.
Well, what the hell was it?
Well, it's I thought it was cool. He said, if it is your passion, do not allow yourself to be denied. If you are determined, I think you can make it. Understand this is incredibly competitive and prepare yourself for this as much as possible. You must have opinions, many, many opinions on everything and be able to back them up. Get in front of a microphone and remember, no matter how big your audience is, to entertain, even if no one is listening. Act like it is a huge crowd. Try to inform and entertain them. College radio is a great option, but even if it is a tape recorder, practice your communication skills. Internships are fun. The only way to launch a career is by personally sharpening your skills. He gave me a number to call about inquiring for an internship. He said, remember to chase that dream and motivate yourself. Good luck, Bob.
How about that?
How badass is that? And I still have it to this day.
Clear. It sounded like you was reading.
I was. I pulled it up and I was reading it.
Okay.
And it's funny because I need to, the next time we do a cross or we have a chance on air with Bob, I need to bring this up because I've never told him about that. Like, I guarantee you has no idea that I had emailed him for advice and that he had emailed me back and how much that meant to me.
No, because he's probably like me in the sense of, like, I'm sure Bob probably did that to somebody when he was a kid, mm-hmm. and somebody emailed him back or sent him a letter back or talked to him on the phone for a few minutes. And so he's paying it forward. And then when you reach a certain level, you pay it forward to, if you put yourself out there and ask, then I'll pay it back to you, or I'll pay it forward and give you whatever I got, whether it's a couple minutes on the phone or whether it's an email or whatever. Because, and I've done that to quite a few people over the years, But what you're talking about happened to me probably about 6 weeks ago. Somebody on Twitter who works at the Tampa Tribune now, covering the Bucks. I don't know if you remember, this thread went through Twitter. Who helped you when you were a kid trying to get the business?
Yeah.
And I put mine out there, and there was guys like Rob Parker and Mike Wilbon and some other guys. Well, this dude put me on there. Yeah, he took me out to lunch when I was interning at the Dallas Morning News and blah, 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 blah. And, dude, when I tell you, I've got a good memory for names and faces. I couldn't remember that dude to save my life. And I was actually disappointed because I was like, I don't know why I don't remember. But you just try to do that, man, because people help you. Nobody gets where they're going by themselves. And so whenever you can try to help somebody, it's always a great feeling. So I'm glad Bob did that. And, didn't somebody ask you about that a few weeks ago or a few months ago?
Yeah, I mean, there's a dude named Andrew that I keep in touch with that, a couple of years ago, I went down to Texas State, my alma mater, and was on a panel for Communication Week or whatever. And you're just up there and you're answering questions from students about the business and all that type of thing. And, this one kid came up, several people came up afterwards. And I always told them, I said, look, man, and I think you're the same way about this. If you guys want my advice or if I can help you, that's great. Your professor knows me very well, which is why I'm here. Whoever wants it, my information is there for you. And one guy took it up on that, and I keep in correspondence with him, and he asked me questions about radio and just different things. He sent me some stuff to listen to before. And, it's one of those things because I had people in my career that helped me do that from time to time that I think it's important. And, thinking back on a day like today where the ticket, which is really changed. And I know that it wasn't the first all sports talk station in the country, but it was one of the very first. And it changed lives for people like me. And it's almost, I would imagine, like kids now, back in the day when I was a kid, my mom and dad, like, you can't make a living playing video games. Okay. It's time to turn them off.
Yeah.
And now when I was a kid, sports talk radio wasn't an option. And then all of a sudden when I was in high school, it was, and it became the thing that I wanted to do because I grew up, the ticket was what I wanted to do. And I mean, it was my dream to work on the ticket when I got into radio originally. And I'll never forget when I had an opportunity starting part-time, it's like all my friends like, oh my God, you've made it. Like I can't believe you're going to be on the ticket. And I know, and the feeling that I got, and I wasn't even doing it was fill in tickers.
Right.
But when I got that email, it was Rich Phillips at the time, and he emailed me, and I auditioned at the ticket, and they brought me on. I was like, oh my God, and the first time you meet some of those guys that you grew up listening to every day, I mean, I was like, whether it was Mike or Corby or whoever, I was like, oh my God. And I tried not to freak out because I believed in myself that I could be there with these guys. And now, years later, you know them fairly well. You've been around them a million times, but the ticket was and it still is to this day, the original. Nobody can do anything like it. And it's such a unique, just beast of a thing. It's hard to understand it unless you've ever been with it. It's just the listeners, the P1s, the way the station continues to have success. It's such a very, very unique in the world of radio, the way that station does.
Yeah, bro. That's why they've been around so long, still thriving.
It's wild, man, from all those memories from just growing up and listening to it and then having a chance to work with it and be, obviously, we were on there today and doing the Sunday show, and it's crazy. It's one of those things in the world of Dallas-Fort Worth radio that has stood the test of time.
Well, it's a big deal for me because Norm gave me an opportunity on there to do, I guess we call it Inside Valley Ranch or whatever.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday. Dude, I must have done that for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And what it does is when you're working with Norm like that and you're on a ticket like that, it adds to your credibility. So, he's on the ticket and he's at the Dallas Morning News. Well, I guess he knows what he's doing.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
So all of that was important. And I always appreciated Norm giving me a chance to do that. And then obviously doing the Sunday show over there for a little while is what set me up to be able to do, more radio down the road.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. It's really interesting, man, because the way the ticket does it, it's so unique to this listening base and the connection that the P1s have with that station. And I can tell you, for instance, like when Scott and I got that opportunity to leave Dallas and go to Birmingham, and that's why, because you know how it is. I mean, those guys were all under contract for years. Unless somebody dies or shockingly retires like Mike did, there's never going to be an opening. You're just always going to be working on the weekend.
Right.
And I wanted a shot to do my own thing. So Scott and I had been looking around, and that opportunity in Birmingham presented itself. And so we go out there, and obviously you're leaving one of the highest rated sports talk stations in the country, a multi-Marconi award-winning sports talk station. So we're thinking, hey, we'll take what the ticket does and do it in Birmingham. We'll be guys. And you get out there, man, and you try to do what the ticket does in another market, and those people are like, what in the hell is this?
Take that wherever you got it from and take it back.
I mean, my God, it took us a solid 6 months to really adjust, and kind of some of the ticket stuff worked, some of it didn't, and it was just a really interesting learning experience. And finally, we had figured out our own niche to where we were doing our own thing. And yes, it's always going to include something from the ticket because that's what I was groomed on and grew up on. I mean, that's what taught me radio for the most part. I mean, in sports radio anyway. And I always find that fascinating. But man, dude, our program director would come in and he would be like, hey, I think you guys are great. I don't know what you're hearing out there. He's like, but I think it's great. And then we found out later, after we finally started to turn around and had some really good success out there, he was like, man, when you guys first got here, I don't know that we've ever had that much hate voicemail and emails. Like, who are these guys? These big city clowns. They shouldn't be in Alabama. And then in the same token, when we got let go, he told us, he's like, remember how I told you we'd never had that many calls? You just broke the record by people who are pissed that they're moving on from you.
That's how it always is.
The cycle of it, man. But yeah, happy birthday to the ticket. Such a huge part. And I know probably a lot of people listening to the podcast, if you're from the DFW area, you're obviously into what we're doing. At some point, you've stopped down on the ticket and spent some time with those guys as well, I would imagine.
No, I'm sure of it.
So elsewhere, as we continue our trip here, a very localized, long-winded one there about the ticket and our experiences. I thought it was interesting because the passing of a couple of people over the course of this last weekend, and we were kind of talking about this earlier when we were talking about Kobe. There are deaths that happen that are like Kobe that shock the system. And then there's ones that happen where it's just these big names, and we're starting to see more of those. And I have this theory on that as well. Now, over the weekend, Hank Aaron passed away, 86 years old. Larry King passed away, 87 years old. We saw Sean Connery die earlier this year. I think he was 90, 91 years old. Look, Betty White's 99. It's going to happen at some point. Clint Eastwood's 90. James Earl Jones is 90. And the reality of it is, my thing, more and more names that are going to start passing away because we are getting to a point where really they were the first in the world of television and movie in which you could consume it in mass consumption. And now those people are starting to get into their 90s, if they're still alive, and late 80s. And so we know more of those names like Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson's in his 80s. And some of those bigger names that have just been around for forever that I would really kind of consider the first of that. There's like the golden era of Hollywood when it was in black and white and all that. But to me, it's like that next era when everything kind of exploded and really became big time stars.
I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's just that I think what you're saying is that their names are known.
Right.
Because the reality of it is they're at an age where they start to die. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know what the average age is of life expectancy is this year. Maybe this time, maybe it's 77, 78, 76, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, it's around there, yeah.
Well, I mean, look at who's passing, man. They're all people who were born in the 40s, for the most part, if not the 30s. And so it's that time of life, and we're just familiar with their names. For example, I read this story in the New York Times this weekend that talked about how, I can't remember the exact number, but like 15 or 20 guys from the championship teams from the Packers have died in like the last year. And it's really, I mean, it's just life. They're at an age where you die.
Right.
Just because you're old. And, it's there's no way around it unless you die early and you're forever young.
That's why
kind of way around it.
Like this weird crap on social media when somebody that's like Sean Connery, oh my God, 2021, I hate this year already. I mean, they're not immortal. Like I've never understood. That's so weird to me when these celebrity names that are in their late 80s and early 90s pass away and people are freaking out on social media. I mean, dude, they won. Like you said, the average life expectancy is like 77 or whatever. Sean Connery got 13 bonus years.
That's how I look at it. You just try to appreciate them while they're here. It's just that time, man. And so, anytime you hit 80, you're in the fourth quarter, and my dad would say you're in overtime.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, if you can get to 80, you've done a hell of a job, and you're in overtime. And, you'd like to play the full 15 minutes and see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're hitting 90, that game is in quadruple overtime, and they're wondering how in the world you keep converting the 2-point conversion.
Yeah. And so it's, you just have to, you come to grips with it. I mean, you can have a lot of thoughts about that, man, mortality and stuff. And it, again, as you get older, you just have to keep your mind in a certain place, because you can freak yourself out, man.
Oh, for sure.
Man, so based on life expectancy, I got like 22 years left.
Just live, man. Live today.
And for me, as you get older, like this probably hadn't come to thought process for you yet, but, as you get older, you go, well, hell, if my dude doesn't have kids for another 10 years, well, hell, I don't know how long I'm going to know those guys. I mean,
that's true. Yeah,
it's all kind of weird stuff like that, man. So I'm like what you just said. I really try to keep it in the moment and have a good time today, and not be getting stressed out about what the future holds, because we're not really guaranteed anything more than the time that we have today.
No, and when you look at Hank Aaron and Larry King and Hammer and Hank, obviously, and I was not alive for any of his career, but to do what he did as long as he did it, I mean, the dude he was a 25-time All-Star. He played from like the age of 20 into his 40s, just a phenomenal career where he never hit like what would be considered like a ridiculous amount of home runs, but the amount of home runs that he consistently hit was ridiculous. I mean, he was always right around 40 home runs every year, like consistently.
Dude. Somebody put up I think it was Pro Football Reference, maybe. They put up a chart the other day comparing Hank Aaron's best 16 years to Willie Mays' best 16-year stretch. And the numbers, I mean, they were almost identical in so many different categories. But the most amazing thing to me was Hank Aaron hit 314 over 16-year period, man, with like 570-something homers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's incredible, because that's back during a period of time where the mound hadn't all been raised and all this other stuff. I mean, hadn't been lowered. And, you didn't have as many teams, so you truly had the best players out there. At that point, you still had, black players have been playing, so you're really playing against the best players. And to have a 16-year stretch like that's incredible.
Yeah, man. And 21-time All-Star. I think I said 25, but 21-time All-Star where this dude...
It's the consistency, man.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, even late... And granted, obviously, once he got older in his career, those last 3 years where he was 40-plus, he wasn't bashing them out. But even at the age of 39, the dude hit 40 home runs.
And I'm telling you, it's a different game then, man. It's like quarterbacks who threw for, 3,000 yards or 3,500 yards in the 70s. That's a different 3,500 than throwing for 3,500 now, where you can't touch anybody. So it's a different game, and so it's even more impressive what he did back then.
Yeah.
Like if you think about just all the technological advantages for health and preparation. Hank Aaron wasn't looking at no DVDs of film study.
No, not at all.
He wasn't taking no BCAAs and a protein shake before a game. There's none of that, man. And so it's incredible what those cats could do.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you look at a couple of the other records that he had that, I mean, everybody talks about the 755 and then, of course, Bonds, who broke it and ended up with 762. And think what you will of that. It doesn't really matter. But he also is the all-time career leader in RBIs with 2297. Albert Pujols, who is the closest active player to him, is third all-time, believe it or not, with 2,100. So he is still 197 RBIs away from Aaron. But the one, and this is one that I don't think will ever get broken, and I don't think anybody's ever going to sniff this, and this is one that nobody ever talks about, really. his major league record for total bases is so obscene and so far. It's like the Cy Young record where he had 511 career wins, which is just ridiculous. Hank Aaron, his total bases, 6,856. That is more than 700 more than the guy in second, who's Stan Musial, who had 6,134.
Damn. I mean, a whole lot of homers and a whole lot of doubles.
Yeah.
And then he had, how many hits did he have? Because he had well over 3,000.
I mean, it's all that, doing it consistently for 23 years. And again, Albert Pujols is fifth all time. Albert Pujols is 900 total bases away from Hank Aaron. I mean, nobody's going to even get remotely close to 68-56. It's just not going to happen.
No, because for one, they're not going to play that long. I mean, the money is so outrageous now.
Right.
I mean, you know, average players make $15 million a year. The great players, Mike Trout, they make, you know, $35 and $40 million a year. And so, you know, you always ask yourself, you know, where's the motivation to play when you're making $40 million a year to be great?
Very true.
I mean, how long does that last?
Yeah, man.
I don't know.
Totally different than it used to be. But Hank Aaron, just what an unbelievable life and greatness, as great as it gets, playing the game of baseball. And then Larry King on the flip side of that, when we were joking about this earlier, the one thing, yeah, you know, the microphone stands out and the suspenders and the glasses and all that. But the one thing about Larry King that boggles my mind, he was married 8 times.
Hey, he was in love with love.
I mean, that is just mind-boggling to me. Like, after you get through 3, I would think, and even that seems like sometimes, do you want to go again? But after 3, I'd be like, okay, I'm just not meant to be married. Let's just date or hang out and be together.
Well, you know, I've been married twice, and I entered number 2, and I said to myself, I didn't tell my wife this. I was like, okay, now if this one doesn't work, I'm probably out the marriage game, because, you know, the first one I could blame on somebody else. Okay, at some point you got to look inwardly and be like, okay, what is it about my selections or about me that makes these things keep failing? I could probably convince myself to do it a 3rd time. I don't think I could ever go past 3.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, 8 marriages.
Like, you know, it's kind of like three strikes you're out.
I think maybe that's what it is in your head, where that's just like, okay, well, I'm out. Sorry.
There's something wrong with me if it's 3. Like,
yeah,
you know, something I can't handle or control or, you know, whatever. But I don't want to get involved in that. But the only reason we care about how many times he's been married is he was such a fantastic interviewer.
Yeah, he was, man. He was one of probably the original, like, just elite level interviewer.
And I steal a lot because Matt will tell you, I study the art of interviewing. I think that's one of the skills I have that I do best. And so I spend a lot of time reading about it. I spend a lot of time listening to interviews and trying to perfect them and and figure out how to be really good at them. And, you know, he was the best at them, man, because the interviews for him, it's all about in the preparation.
Yeah.
Because when you prepare for the interview and you do a lot of reading and you find out a lot of stuff, then you can ask very simple questions about, like, so why did you move to Florida, Matt, to Chase Radio?
Mm-hmm.
And that gives Matt a very, you know, he can go a lot of different ways with that. And then once he answers that, you just listen and you probe deeper. So it's about short, open-ended questions and then listening. Now, what did I just say? It's about short, open-ended questions that allow somebody to answer with something other than yes or no, and listening to the answer so that you can come up with a follow-up.
Right.
Now, listen to all the sports shows that you guys listen to, or all the news shows, even the guys who are men and women who are supposed to be the best, those who work the White House. Listen to their long-ass questions.
I know, man.
Long-ass questions. And then wonder to yourself why you can never get an answer.
I mean, the reality of it with interviewing is it's not about you. It's the person.
Yeah.
You want them to be the featured part of it, which is one thing I love about Howard Stern. I think is a brilliant
yes,
interviewer.
David Letterman is fantastic.
Yes, and they do exist. There are great interviews, and Larry King was one of those original ones. And what lives, man. They lived them. They lived them, Hank Aaron, Larry King, 86 and 87, as they have moved on to the next plane, into the great beyond. So as we continue, of course, as always, we would like to tell you about, we were just talking about those football games, man, and I'm sure several of you were imbibing during watching those. Maybe you picked up some beers at Beer Geek Shop already, but if you haven't, Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall is the place to go to make that happen for yourselves. Everything is available in singles. We did an episode of Just the Sip on our last podcast that dropped Friday. And I'm telling you, man, a local family-owned place. Jason and Deidre will get you taken care of. We actually have, I think it was Daquan that had messaged on Twitter. And I thought, this is really interesting. He's like, I don't drink beer. And I have never had a beer in my life. And he was like, where should I start? And I thought, man, that's a really good question. And I suggested a Radler because anytime somebody goes, I've never had a beer in my life, I go, well, do you drink at all?
Right.
Because if you don't drink at all, then anything with alcohol is going to be so different for you that you want something that's as low AB as possible to kind of tippy-toe your way in. And fortunately for you, Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall has Radlers, and that's something you can even ask them when you go, hey, I don't really drink much at all, because believe it or not, we talked to Deidre about this. She was not a beer drinker until they opened the shop.
Right. Y'all know damn well I was not a beer drinker until Matt drew me into it.
Yeah.
Yanking, kicking, screaming. And now I'm an expert. I was recommended.
Oh, are you?
Although I did tell somebody yesterday, I said, I recommend the hazy IPA if you like fruity drinks, fruity beers to start. I said, but Matt has to confirm that. So, but I thought it was, they're great at that. And then, who was that we had who said they drove 45 minutes? I think it was Coleman too.
Yeah, to pick up that 903, yeah.
To pick up this Fragile, which is a coffee stout we had the other day. But anyway, the whole point of it is whether you're 15 minutes from Rockwall, whether you're an hour from Rockwall, if you make the ride to Beer Geeks, Deidre and Jason, they'll make it worth your while.
Yeah, they will. So make it happen out there in downtown Rockwall. It's Beer Geeks Shop. And of course, as always, we've been discussing this for a while. Those wings at Kroger. I just had literally today, we're recording this on a Sunday, of course. And the last person that tweeted at me, AJ, all that talk about Kroger's wings, I had to try them out for myself. These are great with the obligatory wings picture. I'm telling you, man, the wings from Kroger, it's meat and flavor only. There's no breading. They're fantastic. Available at most North Texas Kroger locations.
Hey, no breading, just meat and flavor. Put them on the top of the skillet on top of the stove in a cast iron skillet. Cook them in a broiler pan. Put them on a grill, the air fryer. It doesn't really matter. Just pick them up, cook them. You can thank us later.
Yes, trust me. And you will be, as several of you on Twitter do, which I always think is awesome. So find those mango habanero, buffalo blue cheese, both flavors at most North Texas Kroger locations. But as we move forward here on the podcast, one of the things that we wanted to discuss, and a lot of you want to discuss this as well, those Dallas Mavericks. It has been an interesting first quarter of the season now. They're only playing 72 games. They are 16 games into this, so not quite a quarter, as obviously 16 times 4 is 64, but they're getting close to that. And we talked about this on our previous podcast, and that was the thing, man. Survive. Figure out during this time period how you can keep yourselves in the conversation. They did that. They are 8-8 after getting their ass kicked down in Houston, or against Houston rather. And it's one of those things where you look at this, Jacques, and it's Josh Richardson finally showed up in street clothes on the bench. You still don't have Maxey. You still don't have Finney Smith. And nobody knows when this team is actually going to be the Mavs team that in the offseason everybody visualized.
No, but I'm not tripping, man. I'm focused on one thing, and the only thing I'm focused on is, can I get all my guys and have them ready for the playoffs and get them all about 20, 25 games together? I really don't care about anything other than that. Now, if you tied me up with duct tape, I'd say, okay, I do care about finishing in the top 4 so that they can get a series at the crib.
Right.
But outside of that, man, I'm not caught up in the record or anything else. I think they've done well to be 500, considering, again, the top 3 players have played 0 seconds together. The top 3, 0 seconds together. And just as a quick aside, I got to tell you, Richardson's a hell of a lot better than I thought he was. Because, I got down on when they sold me that bill of goods about DeLon Wright last year.
Yeah.
And he was never anything more than a buster as a basketball player. And so when you tell me Richardson's coming and, he's going to be great like he was 2 years, whatever, dog. Well, he showed up. I'm like, he looks like a player. So I'm kind of excited now. So until I get all three of those cats out there on the court together, I'm not tripping as long as they can stay about 50-50.
Yeah, and that's where they're at. And to your point, as I mentioned, there's 16 games into this thing. Now, obviously, they'll play Denver at home tonight. I know many of you are listening to this on a Monday, and that's what I mean. On Monday, they will play Denver. And we have only seen Josh Richardson for 8 games. So he's missed half of what their season is. We've only seen Kristaps Porzingis for 6 games. So he's missed more than half the season so far. Finney Smith has only played in 8 games. And it's going to be one of those weird things because they don't know when some of these guys are going to get back, because even though they can clear some of the protocols, they then have to clear the Mavs conditioning test that they're ready for game action. Okay, so then once they clear that conditioning test, guess what? It takes you 2, 3, 4 games once you're in the games to actually get back up to speed of how the actual games are played. So I don't think it's going to be a week or so. I really think that it may be, hopefully, when they hit that 7-game stretch coming up in February where they play at home 7 games in a row, they don't have to get on a plane for over 2 weeks. Hopefully in that stretch they can get these guys back, and then maybe you'll start to see this thing start to gel a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And again, that's why I'm keeping everything in perspective, because you can get frustrated based on expectations. Well, you got to understand, a lot of people, the COVID thing is you just can't overlook it, man. It plays a role in the way the whole season's going. So as long as they in the ballpark, as long as Luka's playing good, as long as KP looks like he's doing his thing, Richardson looked like he was doing his thing when he left. Like, dude, they don't even have the best role players yet.
Yeah.
And it's actually working out okay to me because Josh Green's getting a lot of minutes, a lot of playing time that'll serve him well. I'm not tripping, bro. I promise you. I'm just like, okay, it'd be cool if they won some more, but they ain't got their squad yet, so it's all good.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that they're better than Golden State. I think they're better than San Antonio. Those 2 teams are ahead of them right now. They're 1 game out of 4th. Literally, they're 1 game back of 4th place, even being in 8th. And the fact that they're able to survive and go through this period, as we talked about before, I think it can maybe build something for them. And they can learn from it so that when they do get things going again, this team is going to be, the fact that some of these guys have missed the time that they've had in that regular rotation and what they envision in the offseason hasn't even stepped on the floor yet, and yet they're 500. I think that kind of goes to show you how good this team will be when they get to that point. I hope.
That's what I'm telling you. Did you see? KP looked like exactly what we're talking about. Looked like it took him a couple games to find his stride. And he's been really, really good the last couple games. Took last night off because you don't want him pounding those knees at this part of the season. But, Luka looks fantastic. They're going to be really, really good. So, again, just be patient while they go through this stretch. Hell, we all know the NBA season don't start till after the All-Star game. Anyway, so you got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's just one of the things, honestly, where it's, and we've talked about this as well, when you start losing games to teams in the East that you need to beat, like Chicago a couple of times, then those are the games that somewhere along the way you've got to make up in the West because it is so tightly packed. And they're going to get an opportunity here over the next few days. As I mentioned, they've got Denver on Monday. They've got back-to-back in Utah where, it's 2 road games, but at least they don't have to travel because it's Wednesday and Friday, both in Utah against the Jazz. And then they come home for a couple against Phoenix before playing Atlanta and Golden State and Minnesota and Atlanta again. And you kind of look at this upcoming schedule, and I think that once some of these pieces start coming back, they're going to finish by the time March rolls around and they make it through February. I think they're going to be in a much better position when that back part, and that's not even really the halfway point of the season, but once they get to that point, I think they're going to be just fine.
And that's because they're a really good team, man. They got a really good coach. They believe they're good based on how they performed last year. And now they got 14 games. They got a bunch of games coming at home, 12 of the next 16, I think, over the next couple of weeks. So, they've only had 4 home games, dog. The schedule's not been favorable The COVID situation has not been favorable, yet they're sitting here at 500. They're going to be straight.
They'll be all right. Mavs and Nuggets going down Monday night at the American Airlines Center, which, by the way, I was trying to think, I was looking at the schedule. The last time that the Mavs had 2 home games in a row, you got to go back to the end of the year. That was December 30th and January 1st was the last time that they weren't getting on a plane in between games. And now they have that. We're here on Sunday. They're actually resting. They played Houston at home on Saturday. They actually do not have to travel or do anything other than play again at home on Monday against Denver, which I think is a good thing, even though it's just one day to kind of reset. We'll see what it means for them. I also thought this was interesting, man, because everybody knows life has just changed so much in a year. But it was coming up 1 year ago, and this will be on Tuesday, on January 26th, where Jacques and I landed in Miami with our former radio show producer, Alan, and we took a walk for whatever reason. We thought, oh, it's not that far.
Y'all thought.
That's
not
true.
me, but
okay.
Y'all thought.
We walked way further than we anticipated to get to the convention center where the Radio Row setup was with everything. And we wanted to make sure, hey, we just got into town. Let's make sure we know where we're at, how this is going to go down for the shows and all this. And we get to the Miami Convention Center, and man, we were there for maybe half an hour when all of a sudden you start seeing on Twitter that Kobe Bryant had been killed in a helicopter crash just outside of Los Angeles. And we're like, wait, what? And somehow, some way, the 1 year anniversary is already upon us, coming up on January 26th.
It still seems surreal to me, man. I've been looking at Kobe interviews and clips and stuff, I don't know, a lot for the last week or so. And it just still seems like incredible to me that really took place. And I don't know if it's because he was so young, even though he'd been retired for a couple of years, or because he was so strong mentally and physically, well, surely he can't. I mean, you just don't think of him dying young. I mean, it's just been a trip, man. And I remember that whole day.
Yeah.
What I remember most, man, from all the stuff we saw on social media was Luka putting up those praying hands like, I hope it's not true, or praying that it's not true, or something to that effect. That was one of the wildest days ever, just in the sense of no matter how many stories you read, it just seemed completely unbelievable that somebody like Kobe Bryant, as strong and vibrant as he was not here anymore. And then to throw in the fact that his daughter lost her life along with him at the same time is just, it's still hard to get a grip on.
Yes, it is. It was at the time. I think it's one of those moments, for whatever reason, there are moments like that where you never forget where you were. Sometimes they're historical moments. Sometimes they're a historical death like this. Like, I'll never forget where I was when I found out that Michael Jackson had died. Right. But they only happen when it's something like this. Like, yes, it's sad that Hank Aaron and Larry King passed away as well this past weekend, but they were in their late 80s. And I don't think it's just not surprising. You're like, oh, it's a shame, but at the same time, nobody is immortal, and they had wonderful full lives. And I think that's what jumps out at you about deaths like Kobe Bryant, where, I mean, he was in his early 40s, and you felt like that's a dude who should have made it to 86 or 87 and had another 40 plus years ahead of him. And so when that happens, I'll never forget exactly where we were when that happened, in that Miami Convention Center, where all of a sudden that's all anybody wanted to talk about the rest of the day. And I mean, you'll remember, of course, that next Monday, we're at the Super Bowl leading up for the Kansas City San Francisco game last year on Radio Row. And that next Monday on our show, I'm pretty sure we did nothing but Kobe Bryant talk for 4 hours.
No, I think we did. I remember we did play-by-play on Kobe Bryant.
That's right.
Best highlights. I think it was all Kobe all the time. Because that's all anybody wanted to talk about, man. It wasn't really about the Super Bowl. It was about Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest players we've ever seen, is no longer here in a tragic helicopter accident. Yeah.
It's crazy that whole thing has been a year. Like, I saw that when you put that in the notes and all that, I was like, Kobe, what's good? Like, did something, and I didn't even realize, and I don't know why, that it had been a year.
Dude, you know, the thing the thing that gets me, man, really, is that it's a chance to remember, and I do this myself, that just time just doesn't wait. It's amazing how quick time flies by. You know, I was telling that to my wife, the lovely Lorraine, the other day, in the sense of, and you'll get to experience this soon, in the sense of, I literally remember it seemed like yesterday, and it was only like a year ago for me, that my son would say, hey, can you go and pick up Q, one of his buddies from the football team, and bring him over to the house? Okay, fine. And I was talking to my wife because I was like, time is flying, because my dude told me the other day, I'm going to pick up Q and then we'll be back by the house. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just how quick it is, man. I remember all his buddies I used to have to make a little circle and swing them all up and bring them over for a sleepover. Now they all drive over here. Hey, they come in and then they drive home. And it seems like, it just seems like a blink and things have changed. And so it seems like a blink where Kobe Bryant was dominating the NBA and winning his championships with and without Shaq. And now he's gone, man. Yeah.
It's wild like that, the year that had gone by. And I don't know why I was thinking about that the other day. Everybody was so excited, like, oh, yay, 2020 is over. We're 2021. And then I was looking at the calendar. I was like, dude, February is next week. Like, January is already over.
Yeah. Time flies, man. And you have to take advantage of it. You just can't waste it. It seems like a cliche, but it's true. You don't want to waste any of it, man, because it flies by. It doesn't seem like, check this out, it doesn't seem like I'm in my 50s.
Yeah.
Or how about this, that my wife is closer to 60 than she is 50.
Man.
That's insane. Because when I met her, she was closer to 40 than she was 30.
The cycle of life, man. That's how it is.
Yeah, man. It's and I thought it was really poignant that Vanessa, his wife, put on Instagram the other day, hey, we know there's going to be a lot of moments celebrating Kobe and everything that he meant to all his fans and everybody. Can y'all not put pictures of the wreckage and the flight and all this other stuff out on social media, please? And you would hope that you would hope everybody would honor her wishes and, try to save the family some pain.
But Kobe Bryant, again, as we record this, the 1-year anniversary of his death coming up on Tuesday, January 26th. Crazy, man. I have a theory on that because as you get older, your life goes faster, it seems. And, my theory is if you look at life like a pie, every day as you age, that day takes up less and less of your actual life experience, so you consume it faster, if that makes sense.
Okay, you're going to have to say that one more time, really.
Well, okay, so think about it. So the day that you're born, that's 100% of your life. All the life that you know happened in that one day. So then in the next day, it's been cut in half. And then as you age and time goes by, every single day takes up a smaller percentage of your overall life experience. And so because that percentage is smaller, you're consuming that day quicker in the sense of time.
I kind of get that.
Yeah. And that's why I think about that all the time. I think you can even go back to when we were in school, and I think everybody would agree at this. If you can remember when you were in elementary school, you'd be in school from, say, 8 until 3, and it seemed like the days would never end. And now there are times where I'll wake up at like 7 and it's 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, it's already 4 o'clock. Like, what happened?
Yeah. No, I kind of get that. That's why time is valuable. I was watching some show the other day. It was some kind of drama. And they said, what's the only thing a rich man can't buy? And, somebody guessed 3 times. And they said, no, it's time. Because, it's just gone.
It's like, did you ever see?
You can't get it back.
There is that movie with Justin Timberlake that came out. This is a few years ago called In Time.
I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I thought that was such a unique concept where it wasn't about money. Like the wealthiest people in the world were the ones that had all this time and they could spend their time however they wanted. And then the poorest people, obviously, the ones that were fighting to figure out how to just last that day and get more time. And I thought at the core of what this is about, that's the most truth that there ever was, because time is the one thing that no matter how much money you have, as you just said, no matter anything about your background or whatever, we all essentially in this realm are living within a confined amount of time.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, the only other thing that fits with that is health. You know, you can't buy good health. I mean, you could buy the best medicine or whatever, but ultimately you can't buy good health. And so, I think about all this stuff because as you get older, man, when you're a kid, you never think about death at all.
No, never.
I mean, you just don't. It's not even something that comes up in your thought process. But as you get older, obviously you start thinking more and more about your mortality. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's just, I'm really struck by the cycle of life thing. And it's probably a lot because my mother-in-law passed this week. And even though she had been sick, it was a smidgen unexpected in terms of like you didn't expect it to be this week or whatever. And so I'm always struck when death happens like this because for me, okay, it's my mother-in-law. She's 88. She lived a full, great life, okay? But it's the first death that my son has really ever experienced of somebody like he knew and interacted with and loved and all of that. And then by the same token, there's a pall over the house because my wife's mother has died. But my 5-year-old grandson, man, he's running around like his hair is on fire, playing with dragons and screaming because he's oblivious to it all.
Sure.
And all of that to me in about a 2-hour span was like, I got to go have a drink.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's the different. I'll never forget. And I was very young when I had my first experience with it because I would say, man, I was probably about 5. I would guess I was 4 or 5 when my great grandmother passed. And I remember because she lived out on my grandparents' property out in Quitman. And they had a funeral for, obviously, and you'd go to the viewing or whatever they call it, beforehand. And I asked my mom, and I'll never forget this. And I asked my mom because it didn't compute to me that she wasn't just going to get up or at some point I would see her again. I said, well, can I scream in her ear? And, it's obviously not the appropriate place to do that, so I don't think I was allowed to. But it was one of those things where I was like, well, surely, if I
do that, she'll wake up.
Right. Like, I bet I could do something that would, she's probably just playing a game or something. And then obviously, as you get older, but I mean, as a 4 or a 5-year-old, you have no concept.
That's what I mean. That's the concept the kids have.
Yeah. And then, of course, life goes on and you experience it. And unfortunately, it's what it is for all of us, which is why you should live the moment and enjoy the podcast as often as possible. But I will tell you this, and this is real, because there are things that with time, you really can't wait. And that's kind of the point of this whole thing. And one of those is with your foundation, which is where HFX Foundation Solutions comes in. We tell you about this all the time, but it's true. When you decide to wait on things like that, and you notice cracks and you notice doors are sticking or soil washout, what happens is it's just going to get worse and worse. Now, if you are the smart one and you say, okay, I'm seeing this, you pick up your phone and you give them a call, HFX Foundation Solutions can come out and give you a free inspection and see if there is a problem, what the deal is, and then, of course, be with you through the process of fixing it for you.
Right.
So give them a call. 817-770-0174, or you can simply go online to hfxfoundation.com. They are A-rated with the Better Business Bureau. They service all of Dallas-Fort Worth. And again, Aaron and his team, fans of what we do, and we're fans of them. Get your homes taken care of, guys. This is one of those things legit. Don't put it off. hfxfoundation.com. One of the things that has popped up in the world of sports that highly interests me, man, we talk about this all the time. I have this weird fascination with quarterbacking in the NFL.
Yes, you do.
And I don't know what it is and why it's that position, but I've always been so struck by how somebody like a Tom Brady can be drafted in the 6th round and have that success, and somebody like a Jamarcus Russell can be drafted as a number 1 overall pick in the draft and be a total and absolute disaster. because it's such a position of leadership. There's so much weight that's put on it. It's really, I mean, maybe a pitcher in baseball. I was trying to think if there's another position. Now, in the NBA, we do this, but it's not based on position. It's based on greatness, where you're solely measured on rings and wins.
I think baseball pitcher is probably pretty close because it's the same thing. You have a lot of control, but you don't have all the control, the ultimate control. I mean, you could pitch a one hitter and strike out 17 and lose a ball game 1-0 because the one hit you gave up was a homer.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, I have that fascination. And we know that NFL franchises do because they spend whatever it costs to move up in the draft to get their guy, even when they're wrong, whether it's like a Blaine Gabbert or whomever we've seen over the course of time, where these teams make these moves and they're convinced, okay, this is worth us giving up this bevy of draft picks because this is the guy that's going to get us the ring. And we see how obsessed franchises are with these quarterbacks.
I think it's because it's hard to imagine yourself winning a championship if you don't have a guy like that who can elevate your team, who can make all the throws, who can provide the leadership, who can help get you to that championship level, because you've seen so many great ones do it, whether it's Aikman, whether it's Montana, whether it's Bradshaw. You know, you've seen them, Brady. You've seen the great ones dominate or get their team there. And it's just hard to imagine. You can win without one, but you don't have that same kind of confidence, that same kind of belief that it's going to happen.
And that's why I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason in the NFL, because it's very rare that franchise-type quarterbacks are ever available. It sounds like Deshaun Watson is going to force the issue in Houston now. Houston could say, look, dude, we have you under contract for the next 5 years. So you don't want to show up? Cool. We just won't pay you and we'll roll how we roll. Otherwise, you got to show up and play for us. Now, maybe they do that. Maybe they work out a deal. But the other one is Matt Stafford, who apparently has come to an agreement with the Detroit Lions where they are going to shop him and try and find a willing trade partner to take the last 2 years of his quarterback deal, which is at a really team-friendly type structure that he has over the next couple of seasons. He's only going to be 33 years old. He's still, as we have seen quarterbacks age in this league, I think you'd consider that in your quarterbacking prime. It's going to be interesting to see with some of these names that are out there what happens that could go on to change the landscape of the NFL for the next couple of seasons.
No, man, it's going to be significant, but it's all about your own view of risk. Like, I was asking the question yesterday, like, okay, what is Matt Stafford worth to you? What do you think he's worth? I mean, you trade the first round pick for him. Will 2 seconds get it done? Does it have to be a first and a second? Because there's going to be competition for him. It's just going to be free. Mm-hmm. And all of that to me is interesting because you think you know what Matt Stafford is. Like, you think Matt Stafford is in that range of quarterback below elite, but above good, pretty much in the same Dak category. He's just an older guy because he's put up big numbers. I think a lot of people would say, oh, he's kind of like Tony Romo. He's got all these numbers, yes, but they haven't won anything. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you something. If Romo had come out on the open market in 2015 before he got hurt, what would he have been worth? Or 2016, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's going to be a first-round draft pick at least. I think it'll be a part of the package. I'll be curious to see. I don't know that it's a 2 first-round pick guy.
No, I don't think so, but it's a first and something.
Right. And then you look at it.
Something?
And see, that's what I don't know. Is it like let's take the 49ers, for example. What if the 49ers sit here and say, okay, Kyle Shanahan looks at Matt Stafford and says, this guy is the guy that would have made the throw in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. I would have a ring, and decides he can run my offense and they need to move on. Is it as simple as, okay, we're going to Jimmy G you for Stafford, but then we also have to trade you a draft pick, I would imagine. Is it a first round and Jimmy G?
See, that seems, I think that's a lot.
I do too. But
so I think, okay, and it's like, I don't know that the Lions want Jimmy G. He's Matt Stafford.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I try to tell people. Like, the Lions probably want this is probably what the Lions want. We want a first-round pick in the top half of the draft if we can get it, top 15 or above. Then we want to take our first-round pick at 7, and maybe the one we get at 15, and go up to number 2 with the Jets or whoever's number 2, and get the exact quarterback that we want, or number 3, or wherever we got to go to get the exact quarterback that we want.
Right.
As opposed to waiting at 7 where we got to take whoever's left. So I think they're looking for as high a draft pick as they can get so that they can package those 2 picks and move up. But if we follow up on your thing and say, okay, Jimmy G and a first-round pick, then somebody probably says, San Francisco will probably say, well, toss me something back. Give me a 4th back or a conditional 3rd or something.
Right.
Because that seems like a high price for a 12-letter cuss word who ain't never won nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing with me is I agree with you that Detroit is making this move. They have a new regime taking over with the GM. Obviously, Dan Campbell hired as their head coach in one of the most bizarre introductory conferences ever. Did you see that? Taking kneecaps. And then when you knock us down, we're going to get up and bite off your other kneecap. I was like, Jesus. But point being, maybe it's as simple as you say, look, San Francisco, Jimmy G's your problem. You want Stafford, give us the 12th overall pick. We'll take that from you, your first rounder, throw in a 3rd rounder, and we'll send you a 4th or some crap. Who knows? Indianapolis makes a lot of sense to me, but if you're the Colts, they have the 21st overall pick. So I think with that package, is that enough for Detroit to be swayed? Would it have to be, we want your 1st, your 2nd, or maybe it's your 1st and 3rd this year and your 2nd next year or something like that? I don't know. That's
the $64,000 question. And here's the deal, man. Somebody gonna fall in love. Just because me and you say, well, this is what I'm not paying more than that. All it takes is one Jeff Kaplan to go, oh, I'll buy it. Yeah, I love that guy. I've always loved him. I always thought if we put him with our team, he could win us a championship. And okay, boom, there's your 2 number 1s. All it takes is one dude to fall in love. I think the hard part for Detroit is that there's a lot of quarterbacks available.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz might be available. Now he's available. You got a really good, I think, on paper anyway, really good quarterback draft between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and your boy out of BYU and
Kyle Wilson and Trey Lance from North Dakota State, right, and Kyle Trask.
So
all those different guys. Zach Wilson, not Kyle, sorry.
I think all 5 of them cats going in the first round.
Yeah, I think so. Mac Jones from Alabama could probably go in the first round as well.
That might be 6 first-round quarterbacks, Wentz and Stafford. And I don't even know yet what they're doing with Trubisky. I mean, there could be 8 or 9 dudes available. And so, at one level, it just makes it tricky. Whenever that happens, I'm always of the belief that let me make my move first so I can get who I want or do what I want. I don't want to be reacting.
And that's why when you look at Stafford in particular, there's a couple of teams that I think might actually work. And that's why Indianapolis makes sense, because Indianapolis is not going to get, I would imagine, their quarterback of the future. They're not a team, I wouldn't think. They went 11-5 this year. They have pieces in place where it would make sense. We feel like we can win now. This division is winnable. There's no reason for us to drop off if we can get a quarterback like Stafford who can walk in from day one, much like they did with Phillip Rivers this past year. The other one, I think, and this is kind of maybe a little different, but the Washington football team in the NFC East, you win the division in what's going to be a weak division again next year, where really your only competition should be Dallas, but who knows? You go 7-9. You didn't have a quarterback, but man, your defense is legit. But because they won the division, they don't pick until the 19th pick in the draft. Now, are they looking for a quarterback of the future? Is that a franchise that looks at it and says, hey, we got to get a QB with that first pick and then hope that we can roll things back and our defense is good enough while he's learning the ropes? Or does Rivera say, man, if we can get Stafford in here, we got Terry McLaurin, we took a running back in the second round in Antonio Gibson that showed some flashes last year. With this defense, maybe this will work again.
That's a hell of a question. But see, this is also part of it, Some of it's what the team wants, and some of it's what the player wants. Because if I'm Matt Stafford, I ain't interested in Washington. Y'all have been dysfunctional as long as we've been dysfunctional. I don't believe that the new regime is over. I mean, Matt Stafford's been, I'm not counting the interim coach, he's been with 3 coaches and 4 coordinators in 11 years or 12 years. That's a lot, bro. And so I think he's looking for stability and an opportunity to win. If we just look at it from that perspective, stability and an opportunity to win, I think the Colts are high up there. New England is interesting to me, but I don't think they have enough weapons. I wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Plus, you ain't really trying to be the real quarterback that follows Brady. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Pittsburgh would be intriguing, as we've talked about a couple times this offseason. Big Ben's contract is kind of an albatross. I don't know if they can move around that. But there's a few spots open. But I tell you what, bro, Matt Stafford on the open market, I mean, you got to trade for him. You got to acquire him. But his contract is doable. That makes it very intriguing in the NFL.
It does.
If you think you're a quarterback away. Like, we got everything else lined up. We just need a quarterback, dog.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this.
Matt Stafford?
A lot of people listening right now on this podcast are wondering, because we haven't brought him up, why not the Cowboys? Dak's a $37.7 million fully guaranteed tag, or signing to a long-term contract, which I would imagine is somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million a year. You can get Stafford. Now, his cap hit with the Lions is scheduled for $33 million in 21, but when you get traded and things, his cash is $20 million and $23 million next year with the $26 million cap hit. Is there ever a possibility that the Cowboys look at this and go, 12-year vet, guy can play the position, we save money, we're trying to win now, or do we go and do the 37-7 tag if they can't work out a long-term thing with Dak?
The problem, I think, bro, is that you say you're saving money, but you ain't really saving money per se, because Stafford got 2 years left on his deal. You're going to have to be trying to get him to sign an extension almost as soon as he gets here. Otherwise, guess what you're going to run into? The same Dak situation, where you're trying to get a guy before he's a free agent. And how would you like to give up a first and a third or a first and a fourth for Stafford, and then he don't sign with you? Because he got all the leverage because you gave up those draft picks for him.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Cowboys couldn't come to a deal with a dude in his prime, you know, Stafford ain't taking no discount when he re-ups at 34. I mean, maybe it's cheaper because he's 34.
Yeah, I think it would be cheaper overall.
How long you want to sign him for, though? I mean, you don't want to build around a 34-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, my thing is, because I have that belief in Dak, I would invest in Dak, get that thing done, because I do think he's the type of quarterback that you can build around again when this wave of whoever they have right now is over and done with, as we've seen some of the greats do that, where, okay, as long as we've seen it with Brady in New England, we've seen it with Rodgers, we've seen it with Breeze, these guys, we've seen it with Big Ben. I mean, it was Antonio Brown, now it's Juju Smith-Schuster, it's whatever. As long as you have that quarterback there, these skill position players that you have to overturn every 5 to 7 years, you can make a couple of different runs and keep your window open if the quarterback is right.
Exactly. And so that's what you need to do, man. I would ride with Dak. The devil you know is always better than the devil you don't know. He's younger. He's still moving. Check this out, man. I think people forget about this. Dak is still an ascending player. Like, you don't know where Dak is going to tap out at.
Very true.
Before,
yeah.
Like, he's only 26 years old. He could be an ascending player till he's 28, 29. Then he could play at a certain plateau from 29 to 34 that, you know, we would say would probably be, you know, top 10 NFL quarterback, whether he's probably closer to 10 than 1, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Before he starts his descent. Well, that's 8 years of top 10 NFL quarterback play. You aren't going to get that from Stafford.
No, you're not. And that's the thing. I would go with Dak. If you have to, then you tag him again. Hopefully they have the foresight and the reality to just understand what's coming and get this thing done now, whether it's 4 or 5 years, whatever you have to do to get it done. Because I'm telling you, man, if you think 37.7 or 40 million is a lot, whenever this pandemic is over and whenever that new TV money kicks in, $40 million is going to seem like a bargain when that cap jumps to like 220.
Yep, and that's what it's going to do. And, you know, that's why the Cowboys frustrate me, man. They understand because Jerry and Steven are all Jerry's part of the TV committee, which means Steven knows everything that goes on with the TV money and stuff. They know what's coming. They're going to sell that other package that's probably all streaming, probably sell it to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
The money in the cap is going up. Quit tripping, man. Quit fighting over nickels and dimes with this BS about, well, we got to make sure everybody gets paid. No, you don't. No, you don't. And let me check this out, man. When you're at the crib at some point in your life and money's been tight, because we've all been there unless you're born to rich parents. You've all been at that point where money's tight. You go, well, as long as the rent gets paid, I'll work out the rest. Then it's, okay, as long as the rent and the car note's paid, I'll work out the rest.
Mm-hmm.
We pay the utilities last. Why? Because you got like 2 or 3 months till they cut those off. Your cell phone, that could be a month behind before they cut it off. That house note and that car note, I'm not playing with those two. Everything else, take a back seat. Dak is the house note, man. Pay that dude.
That's a great way of putting it.
Then everything else you can figure out how to rob Peter and pay Paul. Get the house note paid.
Make it happen.
My house, yeah, man. My house. It's the house note. We ain't got no car notes. So guess what's next? It's the life insurance, baby. That gets paid.
There you go.
It's the house note and the life insurance. Everything else, we work around it. We figure out how to make it do what it do.
But again, man, I'm telling you, whether it's Dak, whoever it is, he's technically a free agent. I don't think another team's going to get a shot at him. But, man, the quarterback musical chairs, when you look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be the best prospect in years coming out, you look at the availability of Matt Stafford, the availability of Deshaun Watson, who's like Dak, hadn't even really entered his prime yet, one of the best young quarterbacks in the game, a fascinating offseason for where these guys are going to land and how it will go on to change the landscape of the NFL. You know, maybe in Stafford's case, maybe just a few years, but in Watson's case, I mean, he could change a franchise for the next decade. As always, thanks for listening to the Jam Session podcast. You can find us on Twitter at McMattRadio, at JJT_journalist. Don't forget about our Instagram either. We're always posting pictures of what we have going on, pictures of beer and whatnot on Instagram at Jam Session Cast. Thanks to Purple Elephant Music for the music you hear at the end and beginning of each episode. He is, of course, the sexy radio, TV, and podcast star, Sean Shock Taylor. And I'm just a guy, Matt McLaren. Tell your friends, man, if you would, spread the word of Jam Session, and let's drive and grow this thing together. To subscribe, rate, and review. Don't forget, if you want a t-shirt, to get those into me at matt@jamsessionpodcast.com to send in your orders. And we'll catch you next time. Available everywhere you listen to podcasts.